In 1974, geologist Jim Bowler was walking across the dried lake bed of Lake Mungo in the remote Willandra Lakes region of southwestern New South Wales, Australia, when he noticed something extraordinary. Eroding out of the ancient sand dunes were human bones, weathered and fragile, but unmistakably ancient. What he had stumbled upon would become one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in Australian history. This was Mungo Man, the oldest known ritual burial in Australia, and one of the earliest examples of cremation anywhere in the world. The remains were radiocarbon dated to approximately 40,000 years ago, pushing back the timeline of human occupation in Australia and challenging everything scientists thought they knew about early human migration and behavior. But the real shock wouldn't come from the age of the bones. It would come from the DNA locked inside them. And what that DNA revealed would spark one of the most controversial debates in human evolutionary history. For decades, Mungo Man represented a crucial piece of evidence in understanding how and when humans first arrived in Australia. The traditional story, taught in textbooks and accepted by most scientists, suggested that modern humans left Africa around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago in a single migration wave, moving through the Middle East into Asia, and eventually reaching Australia by crossing temporary land bridges and short ocean passages during periods of low sea levels. These early Australians, the ancestors of today's Aboriginal peoples, were thought to be genetically similar to other populations that left Africa during this migration, carrying the same basic genetic toolkit that would later spread across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. But when scientists first extracted and analyzed DNA from Mungo Man's bones in 2001, the results were shocking and deeply puzzling. The mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down only from mothers and represents one's maternal lineage, showed a sequence that didn't match any known human population, living or dead. It wasn't similar to modern Aboriginal Australians. It wasn't similar to other ancient humans. It seemed to represent a completely separate lineage, one that suggested Mungo Man's ancestors might have left Africa in a different, earlier migration wave, possibly as much as 100,000 years ago, long before the migration that gave rise to all other modern humans outside Africa. This raised an extraordinary possibility. Could there have been multiple waves of human migration out of Africa? Could Mungo Man represent a lineage that went extinct, leaving no descendants? The implications were staggering. The 2001 DNA findings created an immediate firestorm in the scientific community. Some researchers embraced the results, arguing they supported a theory called multi-regional evolution, which suggests modern humans evolved simultaneously in different regions of the world through interbreeding between ancient populations. Others were deeply skeptical, pointing out potential problems with ancient DNA contamination, degradation, or laboratory errors. The debate became heated, with careers and reputations on the line. For years, the mystery remained unresolved because extracting reliable DNA from 40,000-year-old bones is extraordinarily difficult, especially in Australia's harsh climate, where heat and humidity accelerate DNA degradation. Then came a breakthrough in ancient DNA technology. By the 2010s, new methods allowed scientists to extract and sequence DNA with unprecedented accuracy, filtering out contamination and working with even the tiniest fragments of genetic material. In 2016, a new team of researchers, led by some of the world's top ancient DNA specialists, received permission from the traditional custodians of the Willandra Lakes region, the Pakanti, Ngiampa and Muthi Muthi peoples, to resample Mungo Man's remains using these cutting-edge techniques. What they found would completely overturn the 2001 results and rewrite our understanding of human history in Australia. The new DNA analysis revealed something that contradicted the earlier findings entirely. Mungo Man's mitochondrial DNA was not from some mysterious extinct lineage. It belonged to a haplogroup that is still present in modern Aboriginal Australian populations today. Specifically, his DNA fell within the range of variation seen in Indigenous Australians, showing clear genetic continuity between people living 40,000 years ago and Aboriginal peoples today. This was groundbreaking because it demonstrated, without any doubt, that Aboriginal Australians have the longest continuous cultural connection to a single landmass of any people on Earth. Their ancestors weren't replaced, didn't go extinct, and maintained genetic and cultural continuity for over 1,600 generations. But the new DNA revealed even more shocking details. When researchers compared Mungo Man's genome with genetic data from thousands of modern populations around the world, they found something unexpected. The divergence between aboriginal Australian lineages and other human populations occurred approximately 50,000 to 55,000 years ago, shortly after humans left Africa. This suggested an incredibly rapid migration. Humans didn't slowly drift across Asia over tens of thousands of years. They moved fast, reaching Australia within just 5,000 to 10,000 years of leaving Africa. This speed of migration implies sophisticated maritime technology, social organization, and adaptability far beyond what scientists had previously credited to early humans. The genetic data also revealed something about population size and isolation. After arriving in Australia, these founding populations remained remarkably isolated from other human groups for tens of thousands of years. There was little to no gene flow between Aboriginal Australians and populations in Asia or elsewhere until very recent times, likely not until the last few thousand years. This isolation allowed unique genetic, linguistic, and cultural characteristics to develop and be preserved. The Aboriginal Australian gene pool represents one of the oldest, most distinct branches of the human family tree outside Africa. Perhaps most remarkably, the new analysis detected traces of archaic human DNA in Mungo Man's genome, specifically DNA from Denisovans, a mysterious extinct group of ancient humans known primarily from fragmentary fossils found in a cave in Siberia. The presence of Denisovan DNA in Aboriginal Australian genomes has been known for several years, but finding it in Mungo Man, who lived 40,000 years ago, confirmed that interbreeding between modern humans and Denisovans must have occurred very early, likely in Southeast Asia, before the ancestors of Aboriginal Australians reached the continent. This adds another layer to the complex story of human evolution. We didn't evolve in isolation. Our ancestors interbred with other human species, and those ancient encounters left genetic signatures that persist to this day. The retesting also solved the mystery of why the 2001 results were so wrong. Detailed analysis revealed that the original DNA sample had been contaminated with modern DNA, likely from researchers or from environmental sources. Ancient DNA is incredibly fragile, and early extraction techniques weren't sophisticated enough to distinguish between authentic ancient sequences and modern contamination. The original researchers weren't incompetent, they were simply working with the best tools available at the time, but those tools weren't good enough. The 2016 retesting used multiple independent laboratories, strict contamination protocols, and advanced sequencing methods that could identify and exclude contaminated sequences. The results were replicated multiple times to ensure accuracy. The implications of these new findings extend far beyond just correcting an error. They fundamentally reshape our understanding of human migration patterns, technological capabilities, and the resilience of human populations. The fact that Aboriginal Australians maintained genetic and cultural continuity for over 40,000 years, surviving dramatic climate changes including ice ages and sea level fluctuations, demonstrates extraordinary adaptive capacity. During the last glacial maximum, around 20,000 years ago, much of the world was covered in ice, and many human populations were pushed to the brink of extinction. Yet Aboriginal Australians not only survived, but maintained complex cultural practices, including arty ceremony and sophisticated ecological knowledge. The genetic evidence also has profound implications for understanding Aboriginal Australian culture and rights. For decades, some people questioned whether Aboriginal Australians were truly the first inhabitants of the continent, suggesting there might have been earlier populations that were later replaced. The DNA evidence definitively refutes this. Aboriginal Australians are the direct descendants of the first people to set foot on the continent, and their connection to the land is not just cultural or spiritual, it is biological and genetic, stretching back through millennia. This has important legal and moral implications for land rights, cultural heritage protection, and recognition of Aboriginal sovereignty. The Mungo Man case also highlights the importance of collaboration between scientists and Indigenous communities. The 2016 retesting only happened because researchers worked closely with the traditional custodians of the Willandra Lakes region, respecting their concerns, involving them in decision-making, and ensuring that the research was conducted ethically. This collaborative approach has become a model for how ancient DNA research should be done, particularly when studying the remains of indigenous peoples. Science is stronger when it respects and incorporates indigenous knowledge and perspectives. Today, Mungo Man's remains have been returned to the care of the traditional custodians, a recognition that these are not just scientific specimens, but ancestors deserving of respect and proper treatment according to cultural protocols. The DNA results have been shared with Aboriginal communities, and the findings have been incorporated into educational programs that celebrate the extraordinary depth and continuity of Aboriginal Australian culture. The story of Mungo Man has transformed from a scientific mystery into a powerful affirmation of Indigenous identity and resilience. The retesting of Mungo Man's DNA reminds us that science is not a fixed body of knowledge, but an ongoing process of discovery, correction, and refinement. Early results can be wrong, and that's okay, as long as we remain committed to testing, questioning, and improving our methods. It also reminds us that the most important scientific discoveries often come not from confirming what we already believe, but from challenging our assumptions and being willing to accept that everything we thought we knew might be wrong. In this case, correcting the error didn't diminish the significance of Mungo Man, it enhanced it, revealing an even more remarkable story of human endurance, adaptation, and connection to place. Thanks for watching. If you found this story of scientific correction and Indigenous resilience fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Let us know in the comments what other ancient DNA mysteries you'd like us to explore. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep respecting the stories that ancient bones have to tell.